All right, here we go with examples from 7-4. And we're going to be looking at kind of some rectangle and rhombus examples that you might see on your IXL assignment. So, first guy, you're going to see some problems where it's like, hey, is this a rhombus or not? Well, first thing we're going to identify is these guys are different. That's a problem. If we look at our notes, we're going to remember, oh, diagonals of a rhombus bisect the angles. So this is clearly not bisected, so the answer is no. That is not a rhombus. Second one, is this guy a rhombus? There's no numbers. But wait. Boom, right there. We have an issue, or not an issue, I'm sorry, a characteristic that should jump out right there, and that is that the diagonals are perpendicular. If the diagonals are perpendicular, does that tell us enough information? It actually does. Yes, that is a rhombus, because the diagonals are perpendicular. This guy right here, is this a rhombus? We have a diagonal bisecting the angles. Now you might think, well, Mr. Mikeson, we're not given enough information. This actually does give us enough information. So this is actually a yes, because we know these guys are equal, and we know that one diagonal bisects these angles. The other diagonal's gonna have to bisect the other one. And we have two congruent triangles also, kind of by an angle side situation, if you remember that. Or angle side angle, whichever way you want to go. Anyway. Yep, that's a yes. And last but not least, this guy here. This is a nice one because we have to do a little bit of math. Or, no, I'm not really math, but we got to do some figuring. We have a rhombus here. What's the measure of CFG? CFG. Looking for that angle right there, CFG. Well, here's what we know. If this is a rhombus, we know we have a 90 degree in the middle. And if this, we'll put an X in here because that's the angle we're looking for. We know this diagonal bisects this full angle. So if this is an X, this guy over here is also an X. Well, hey, now I have a triangle. Bing, bing, bing. We have a 90 plus 25, 115. That's my angles that I know about. Now I'm going to subtract that from 180. And we get a 65. Boom. Wow, done. So sometimes you're going to have to use your properties to kind of move something around so that you can figure out how to set up maybe an equation or figure out a property. Like with this one, we had to move the X around using a rhombus property, and then remember, oh, that's a 90 rhombus property. And now we're using triangles, which is back from chapter 4. Well, triangles have 180 degrees. So we're kind of using a lot of different properties in these. It's not easy, but you guys can do it. Is this guy a square? Well, first thing we know is these diagonals are going to be different because we have a 28 and a 29. Remember, a square needs to have rhombus properties and rectangle properties. Rectangle properties make all the bisected diagonals congruent. They are clearly not. We have 28 and a 29, so this is a no. Nope, that's not going to be a square. And this guy here, is this guy going to be a rectangle? Well, we've got all the diagonals, or all the bisected diagonals congruent. That's going to be a yes. Yep, right there. So that uses that diagonal property. If you look back at your notes, you will see pictures. And the pictures, we have a picture that matches that directly of a rectangle. quadrilateral GHGIJ is a square. What's the value of x? Remember, square, all angles 90. Okie dokie. And all sides congruent. Okie dokie. So, boom. Those guys are equal to each other. And from here, we are just going to do our basic algebra. X equals 11. Boom. Done. And last but not least, is this guy a square? Oh man. Identifying squares is going to take the most time to identify because you have to identify a rectangle trait and a rhombus trait. So we look at this picture, and we've seen a couple problems with diagonal situations. We see that the diagonals are all bisected and their little sections are all congruent. So it passes the rectangle test. Do we have enough information to see if the what's it called? It's a rhombus wheel. Let's check. What do we need in our notes? Hey, look at that. Boom! We have a 90 in there. The diagonals have formed a 90-degree angle. That is a rhombus trait. So this has a rectangle trait and a rhombus trait, which means it is a square. Okay. Again, squares, in my opinion, are going to take the most work to figure out because if this picture doesn't have like the congruence, then you only know it's a rhombus. If it only has this, then you don't know if that middle is 90 or not. So, actually, is that true? Anyway, we do know this guy has bisected diagonals, and the diagonals are congruent, which is a rectangle trait. We have a 90-degree in there. Let me see one more trait, rhombus. Yeah, the only thing that really makes a rhombus is if we can figure out that the sides are congruent, which we actually could using side angle side situations. But the main deal is that perpendicular diagonal. That's going to be probably the most common thing you're going to see when trying to figure out if something's a rhombus or not. Alright, thanks for watching. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Have a good day.